The emergency beacon pulsed through subspace, its urgent frequency causing ripples of unease throughout the Galactic Assembly's pristine halls. Senior observer Kexti stood before the Grand Council, their crystalline form trembling slightly as they delivered the news that would forever change the course of galactic history. Distinguished council members, we have detected anomalous readings from Sol 3, designated as a pre-spaceflight civilization. They've achieved faster than light travel. The chamber erupted in chaos. The council members, representing over 300 spacefaring species, began speaking all at once. Some rose from their seats, others changed colors in distress, and a few even entered their species' equivalent of a protective stance. First speaker Vaxarin, an ancient being whose serpentine form wrapped around the ceremonial pillar of wisdom, raised all four of their arms for silence. The chamber gradually quieted, though the undercurrent of fear remained palpable. Observer Kexti. Vaxarin's voice resonated through the chamber. Your department estimated humans wouldn't achieve FTL capability for at least another 3 centuries. Explain this discrepancy. Kexti's crystalline surface flickered with patterns of embarrassment and concern. First speaker, the humans. They didn't follow any known development pattern. They didn't discover the expected precursor technologies. They simply found another way. Impossible. The outburst came from Ambassador Yix of the Mechanoid Consortium, their optical sensors flaring bright red. The path to FTL travel is linear. It requires specific technological achievements in a specific order. We have observed this pattern in every spacefaring race for the past 50,000 years. That's precisely what makes this situation so alarming, Kexti continued, bringing up a holographic display of Earth's technological progress. Humans approach the problem differently. Instead of following the standard progression through quantum field manipulation and zero-point energy extraction, they developed something entirely new, something we've never seen before. The display showed a complex engine design that made several council members recoil in shock. It was elegant in its simplicity, yet terrifying in its implications. Humans had essentially found a shortcut to the stars, one that no other species had conceived of in millennia of space travel. First speaker Vaxarin's scales shifted to a deep purple of concern. What do we know about their current capabilities? They've successfully tested their first prototype, Kexti reported, their crystal surface now pulsing with urgent patterns. But that's not what truly concerns us. It's their rate of technological advancement that's unprecedented. Once they solve a fundamental problem, their implementation and improvement cycle is aggressive. The holographic display shifted to show Earth's technological progress over the past century. The exponential curve of advancement caused several council members to emit their species' equivalent of gasps. This is beyond concerning. Ambassador Lyra of the Collective Mind spoke, her thought waves creating ripples of unease in the chamber's psychic atmosphere. We all know the studies about human physical capabilities. Their endurance, their persistence, their ability to survive conditions that would kill most sentient species, and now they've demonstrated intellectual capabilities that defy our understanding of technological progression. First speaker Vaxarin unwound slightly from their pillar, moving closer to the center of the chamber. The question before us is clear. What do we do about humanity? Containment protocols, shouted one council member. Full integration, argued another. Immediate diplomatic contact, suggested a third. Ambassador Yix's mechanical form whirred in agitation. We cannot risk containment. Their pattern-breaking abilities make them unpredictable. Attempting to contain them might accelerate their development through necessity. Integration is equally risky, Lyra countered. Their physical capabilities already make many species uncomfortable. Adding their technological innovations to the mix could destabilize the entire galactic community. First speaker Vaxarin raised their arms for silence once again. Observer Kexti, your department has studied humans the longest. What is your recommendation? Kexti's crystalline form pulsed with complex patterns before they spoke. Based on our extensive observations, humans possess a unique combination of traits that make them both invaluable and dangerous. They are collaborative yet fiercely independent, peaceful yet capable of tremendous violence, curious yet cautious. But above all, they are persistent. When they set their minds to a goal, they achieve it, regardless of the obstacles. The observer paused, their surface rippling with uncertainty before continuing. My recommendation is unprecedented, but so is this situation. I suggest we initiate first contact immediately, but not in the traditional way. Instead of offering them membership in the assembly, we should offer them partnership. The chamber filled with confused murmurs. Partnership was not a concept the assembly typically considered. All spacefaring races were either members or potential members. There was no other category. Explain. First speaker Vaxerin commanded. We acknowledge their achievement and their potential. We offer them access to our knowledge and resources. But instead of trying to integrate them into our existing structure, we create a new framework, one that respects their independence while establishing protocols for cooperation. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. What Kexity was suggesting would fundamentally change how the assembly operated, breaking 50,000 years of tradition. First speaker Vaxerin's scales shifted through several colors before settling on the deep blue of decision. The timeline is critical. How long before they achieve reliable FTL travel? At their current rate of progress, Kexty responded, weeks, perhaps days. The chamber erupted in chaos once again, but this time, first speaker Vaxerin didn't call for silence. Instead, they began the emergency voting protocols. The assembly had to decide quickly. Humanity had already proven they wouldn't wait for the galaxy to be ready for them. As the votes began streaming in, observer Kexty's crystal form pulsed with an emotion that few in the chamber recognized. Hope. Perhaps they thought. This wasn't a crisis at all, but rather the beginning of something extraordinary. After all, any species that could break the fundamental rules of technological progression might just be capable of helping the galaxy break free from its own stagnation. Deep within the assembly's research complex, lead researcher Dr. Zenaval stared at the holographic displays with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. The data streaming before her compound eyes told a story that defied conventional xenobiological understanding. Play the footage again, she instructed her team, her antennae twitching with excitement. The holographic display shifted, showing a human rescue operation during what the Earth species called a natural disaster. The research team watched in stunned silence as humans ran into burning buildings, lifted massive debris, and worked continuously for days with minimal rest. Impossible, muttered senior researcher Krell, his gelatinous form rippling with agitation. No sentient species would willingly subject themselves to such physical stress. The biological cost is too high. That's what makes them unique, Zenaval responded, manipulating the display to show multiple scenarios simultaneously. Look at these patterns. Humans don't stop when their bodies signal distress. They've developed both biological and psychological mechanisms to override their own survival instincts. The display shifted to show medical data. Their bodies literally repair themselves while still in motion. They can continue functioning with injuries that would incapacitate most species. But it's not just their physical resilience that's remarkable. It's their problem-solving approach. She brought up the schematics of the human FTL drive that had thrown the assembly into chaos. See how they approached faster than light travel. While we all followed the quantum fold principle, they developed what they call a bubble drive. Instead of trying to move through space, they move space itself. It's elegant, efficient, and completely outside our established scientific paradigms. But surely their advancement must have limits, Krell asked, extending a pseudopod toward the display. Their civilization is barely 10,000 years old. They still have internal conflicts. Their planet's climate is in flux. How do they achieve this level of innovation under such conditions? Zenaval's antennae quivered with what her species' equivalent of a smile. That's the most fascinating part. They don't achieve despite their challenges. They achieve because of them. Look at this analysis. The display showed a timeline of human technological advancement. Every major leap in their development coincides with a period of crisis or conflict. They don't just solve problems. They transform them into opportunities for growth. Director Kexty needs this report within the hour. Krull reminded her. What's your recommendation going to be? Zenaval dimmed the displays and turned to face her team. The truth is both simple and terrifying. Humans are not just another spacefaring species. They represent an entirely new category of sentient life. While we evolved through gradual adaptation to our environments, humans evolved by actively challenging theirs. She brought up a new display, this one showing human exploration missions, deep sea ventures, mountain climbing expeditions, desert crossings, and spacewalks. They seek out hostile environments not just for resources or necessity, but for the pure challenge of conquering them. They deliberately place themselves in survival situations as a form of recreation. Recreation. Several team members shifted uncomfortably at the concept. Yes, they call it extreme sports or adventure tourism. They intentionally risked their lives for what they term the experience. No other known species exhibits this behavior. Krull's form rippled with concern. So what do we tell the assembly? That we've discovered a species that treats near-death experiences as entertainment. We tell them the truth, Zenaval said, beginning to compose her report. Humans are not just physically resilient or technologically innovative. They are fundamentally different in their approach to existence itself. While most species seek to maintain homeostasis, humans actively pursue disruption and change. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But here's what will really worry the assembly. Humans are accelerating. Their rate of technological advancement isn't just exponential, it's recursive. They take each new discovery and immediately begin looking for ways to improve it. They don't wait for perfect solutions. They implement imperfect ones and refine them through iteration. That's not how technological development is supposed to work. One of the junior researchers protested. There's a natural order to scientific progress. According to whom? Zenaval challenged. We've followed the same patterns for 50,000 years because we believe they were the only patterns possible. Humans are proving that assumption wrong. She finalized her report with a statement that she knew would send shockwaves through the assembly. Based on our comprehensive analysis, we must conclude that traditional methods of species integration or containment will not work with humans. They are, in essence, an evolutionary wildcard, a species that has broken free from the normal constraints of biological and technological development. The assembly won't like this, Krull warned. The assembly needs to understand this, Zenaval corrected. Because one thing is certain, humanity has already noticed the signs of our observation. Their entertainment media is full of speculation about alien life. Their scientists are actively searching for us. And if there's one thing we've learned about humans, it's that once they start looking for something, they don't stop until they find it. As she transmitted the report, Zenaval added one final note. Recommendation. Immediate preparation for human contact on their terms. We can either meet them as equals now, or risk them discovering us under circumstances we cannot control. Either way, the galaxy is about to change forever. The diplomatic chamber of the assembly glowed with an ethereal light as Ambassador Lyra addressed the Emergency Response Committee. The chosen representatives of 12 elder species had gathered to craft what would become either the greatest diplomatic success or the most catastrophic failure in galactic history. The humans have detected our observation satellites, Lyra announced, her thought waves tinged with concern. Their primitive detection systems shouldn't have been capable of this, but they've somehow modified their orbital telescopes to identify our cloaked platforms. First Speaker Vaxerin, who had insisted on personally overseeing this critical operation, coiled tighter around their ceremonial pillar. How long until they achieve direct contact capability? Based on Dr. Zenaval's latest analysis, We have perhaps 3 standard cycles before they successfully calibrate their bubble drive for long-range travel. Lyra projected a simulation showing humanity's likely expansion patterns. Once that happens, containment becomes impossible. Ambassador Yix's mechanical form hummed with calculation. The human information networks are already buzzing with speculation about our presence. They've documented unexplained phenomena that correlate with our observation missions. Some of their theories are disturbingly accurate. Then we must act now, Vaxerin declared. Present the diplomatic strategy. Lyra activated the central hologram, displaying an intricate web of diplomatic protocols and carefully crafted deceptions. We propose Operation Guardian, a multi-layered approach to managing humanity's introduction to galactic society. The hologram shifted to show a series of staged encounters. First, we arrange an accidental discovery of one of our beacons. We make it appear damaged, but ensure it contains enough information to intrigue them without revealing our full capabilities. Meanwhile, Ambassador Yix continued, we initiate what they call a soft contact approach. We allow them to detect more signs of our presence, but always at a distance. We make ourselves appear more primitive than we are, suggesting we've only recently achieved interstellar travel ourselves. Several committee members shifted uncomfortably at the suggestion of deliberate technological deception, but none voiced opposition. The stakes were too high for ethical debates. The critical element, Lyra proceeded, is the isolation protocol. We create the impression that the galaxy is sparsely populated, with only a few scattered civilizations at similar development levels to humanity. We present ourselves as fellow pioneers, learning to navigate the cosmos together. And what of the truth? Asked a crystalline being from the outer rim. That the galaxy teems with life. That we have achievements they cannot yet imagine. We hide it, Vaxerin stated firmly. We create a buffer zone around their expansion territory. All advanced civilizations will withdraw from that sector, leaving only carefully planted artifacts and evidence that supports our narrative. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They were proposing to deceive an entire species on an unprecedented scale. There's more, Lyra continued. We've analyzed their cultural transmissions extensively. They have a deep-seated desire to help others, to be heroes. We can use this. We create scenarios where they can assist us with their unique capabilities, making them feel valued while we study their methods up close. The hologram displayed a series of staged crises, apparent technological failures, astronomical phenomena, and diplomatic disputes that humanity could help resolve. Each scenario was designed to occupy human innovation, while channeling it in directions the assembly could control. And what happens when they discover the truth? The question came from a shadowy figure representing the collective mind. All our studies indicate they respond poorly to deception. Lyra's thought waves flickered with uncertainty. We've developed containment protocols, which Dr. Zenaval's report explicitly stated would not work, the shadow being interrupted. We're not just dealing with their technology or their physical capabilities. We're dealing with their persistence. If they discover one deception, they will never stop until they uncover them all. Then we must ensure our deception is perfect, Vaxerin declared. We have no choice. We cannot risk humanity's unfettered expansion into the galaxy. Their drive to explore, to push boundaries, it would upend millennia of carefully maintained order. Ambassador Yix's optical sensors dimmed slightly. There's another factor to consider. Their entertainment media, what they call science fiction. Many of their stories involve scenarios exactly like what we're proposing. They've literally been imagining and solving these types of deceptions for centuries. All the more reason to act now, before they're fully prepared. Lyra insisted. We can learn from their fiction, anticipate their responses, and craft our deception accordingly. The committee spent the next several hours refining the plan, adding layers of believability and carefully orchestrated revelations that would keep humanity occupied for decades. Yet beneath the technical discussions, an undercurrent of unease persisted. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, not just first contact with a new species, but the deliberate manipulation of their entire civilization's understanding of the galaxy. If they succeeded, they would maintain the cosmic order that had preserved peace for 50,000 years. If they failed. As the session concluded, First Speaker Vaxerin issued the implementation order, their scales shifting through patterns of concern. Begin Operation Guardian, and may the cosmos forgive us for what we're about to do. Little did they know, at that very moment, a human deep space probe was detecting something that wasn't supposed to be there. A tiny anomaly in the carefully constructed deception that would change everything. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the data streaming across her quantum display aboard the ESS Pioneer, humanity's first deep space research vessel. Her hands trembled slightly as she triple-checked the readings. There was no doubt about it. The anomaly was real. Captain Rodriguez, she called over the ship's comm system. I need you in the lab immediately. Within minutes, the captain and the ship's senior staff had gathered around her station. The holographic display showed what appeared to be empty space, but the sensor readings told a different story. It's a transmission, Sarah explained, her voice tight with excitement, but not like the primitive beacons we've been finding. This is orders of magnitude more sophisticated, and it's not meant for us to find. We only detected it because of the quantum fluctuations from our bubble drive. Captain Rodriguez leaned closer to the display. Can you decode it? Already have. Sarah pulled up the decoded data stream. It's administrative traffic, not meant for external communication. And look at the timestamp. It's real time. This isn't some ancient artifact. There's an active, advanced civilization out here right now. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. The primitive alien civilizations they'd encountered over the past year, the seemingly sparse population of the galaxy, the carefully spaced discoveries that had led them along a predetermined path. It had all been orchestrated. They'd been playing us, Rodriguez said quietly, his face hardening. Every encounter, every discovery, has been carefully staged, Sarah finished. But they made one crucial mistake. They didn't anticipate how our bubble drive technology would interact with their quantum communication networks. We're seeing behind the curtain. The ship's AI, spoke up through the lab's speakers. I've analyzed the complete data stream. This is part of a larger network, something they call the assembly network. There are hundreds of civilizations out there, far more advanced than what we've been shown. In the Assembly's Emergency Response Center, alarms were blaring. Ambassador Yix's mechanical form whirred with unprecedented speed as they processed the incoming data. They've detected the quantum network. How is this possible? Dr. Zenaval, who had been brought in as a consultant, studied the readings with her compound eyes. It's their bubble drive technology. The way it warps space-time is creating unforeseen interactions with our communication systems. We never considered this possibility because it's completely outside our understanding of physics. First Speaker Vaxerin uncoiled from their pillar, their scales now a deep red of crisis. Can we shut down the network? It's too late. Lyra's thought waves carried panic. They're already downloading massive amounts of data. Their AI systems are decrypting our protocols faster than we can change them. Back on the Pioneer, Sarah and her team worked feverishly to process the flood of information. The truth about the galaxy was far more incredible than they had imagined. Not only were there hundreds of advanced civilizations, but they were all part of an ancient order that had maintained stability for 50,000 years. They were afraid of us, Sarah realized, reading through the diplomatic archives. Not because we were dangerous, but because we were unpredictable. We didn't follow their rules of technological or social development. Captain Rodriguez had already begun composing a message to Earth Command when the ship's sensors detected multiple vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel around them. The assembly had arrived in force. We're being hailed, Araya announced. The holographic display came to life, showing a diverse group of alien beings. At their center was a serpentine creature wrapped around a crystalline pillar. Humans of the ESS Pioneer, first speaker Vaxerin began. We have been lying to us, Rodriguez interrupted, his voice calm but firm. We know everything. The question is, what happens now? The tension in both ships could have been cut with a knife. 50,000 years of galactic order hung in the balance. You have to understand, Lara began, her thought waves trying to project calm. The stability of the galaxy was maintained through control and deception. Sarah cut in. We've read your archives. You've been doing this for millennia. Controlling the development of young civilizations, deciding who gets to join your assembly, and when, all according to your rules. Rules that have kept the peace, Vaxerin insisted. Rules that have kept the galaxy stagnant, Rodriguez countered. We've seen your technological development curves. Innovation has slowed to a crawl because everyone has to follow the same predetermined path. And you think you know better? Ambassador Yix challenged. Your species is barely out of its cradle. We think differently, Sarah responded. That's what scares you. We don't follow your patterns. We don't accept your limitations. And now that we know the truth, we won't accept your control. The assembly ship's weapons remained powered down, but their presence was an implicit threat. Yet something unexpected was happening. As the confrontation unfolded, other ships began appearing at the edge of sensor range. Vessels from younger civilizations that had also been under the Assembly's guidance. You see, Vaxerin said, this is exactly what we feared. Already you disrupt the order. The order is already disrupted, Rodriguez stated. The only question is whether you're willing to have an honest dialogue about the future. In that moment, as humans faced down the combined might of the galaxy's eldest civilizations, something unprecedented happened. Dr. Zeneval stepped forward, her antennae quivering with excitement rather than fear. First speaker, she said, perhaps this is exactly what the galaxy needs. Not chaos, but change. Not disruption, but evolution. The next few moments would determine whether humanity's discovery of the truth would lead to conflict or transformation. And in the depths of space, aboard the Pioneer, Sarah Chen smiled. Because if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was turning moments of crisis into opportunities for growth. One standard galactic year after the confrontation at the edge of human space, the assembly chamber looked very different. The rigid hierarchical arrangement had been replaced by a circular forum, where representatives from all civilizations, both ancient and emerging, gathered as equals. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the speaking podium, now addressing the assembly not as an outsider, but as Earth's official representative. The chamber was packed, with delegates from hundreds of worlds eager to hear the results of what had become known as the Integration Initiative. When we discovered the truth about the assembly's deception, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We had a choice. We could have responded with anger, with military force, or with isolation. Instead, we chose to do what humans do best. We innovated. The holographic displays around the chamber showed the remarkable changes of the past year. The rigid technological development pathways that had controlled galactic progress for 50,000 years had been replaced by what humans called open-source development, a collaborative approach that encouraged diversity in problem-solving. The results speak for themselves, Sarah continued. In just 1 year of unrestricted collaboration, we've seen more technological advancement than in the previous century. But more importantly, we've seen something the Assembly never expected: cultural evolution. First speaker Vaxerin, who had chosen to remain in their position through the transition, uncoiled slightly from their pillar. I must admit, the outcome has exceeded our most optimistic projections, though perhaps we should have expected that from humans. The chamber filled with appreciative murmurs, and their various species equivalents of laughter. The tension that had once permeated any discussion of humanity had been replaced by genuine respect, and in many cases, admiration. Dr. Zeneval, now heading the new Xenological Exchange Program, activated her own display. The human approach to problem-solving has revolutionized not just our technology, but our entire understanding of development. Their concept of parallel innovation, allowing different civilizations to approach challenges in their own unique ways, has unleashed potential we never knew existed. The displays showed various examples. A young aquatic species had developed entirely new approaches to space travel based on their understanding of fluid dynamics. A crystalline race had revolutionized quantum computing by applying their natural lattice-based thinking. Each civilization was now free to develop along its own path while sharing discoveries with the greater community. But perhaps the most significant change, Sarah continued, has been in how we handle first contact with new civilizations. The display shifted to show the recent introduction of a pre-FTL species to the galactic community. Instead of deception and control, we now offer truth and choice. Yes, it's messier. Yes, it's less predictable. But it's also more ethical and, as we've discovered, more effective. Ambassador Yix, whose initial skepticism of humanity had transformed into passionate advocacy, added their perspective. The old assembly sought to prevent chaos through control. What we've learned from humans is that true stability doesn't come from enforced order. It comes from embracing diversity and adaptation. There have been challenges, Sarah acknowledged. Cultural clashes, technological disputes, philosophical disagreements. But we found that facing these challenges openly and honestly leads to stronger solutions than hiding them behind a veil of artificial harmony. The next set of displays showed the new galactic exchange centers, massive space stations where different species could freely intermingle, share ideas, and collaborate on projects. The human concept of innovation hubs had been adapted to a galactic scale. A year ago, Sarah continued, the assembly feared that human unpredictability would destabilize the galaxy. Instead, it has revitalized it. We've shown that it's possible to have both progress and stability, innovation and harmony, diversity and unity. First Speaker Vaxerin raised all four arms for attention. The success of the integration initiative leads us to a historic decision. The Assembly has voted to formally dissolve the old hierarchy and establish the new Galactic Cooperative. Under this new structure, all civilizations, regardless of age or origin, will have an equal voice in shaping our shared future. The chamber erupted in approval, with beings of all forms and compositions expressing their support in their unique ways. The rigid crystalline structure that had governed galactic society for 50,000 years had been transformed into something more dynamic, more inclusive, and ultimately more alive. As the celebration continued around her, Sarah caught Dr. Zenaval's compound eyes. The xenobiologist's antennae were quivering with what Sarah had learned was their species' expression of joy. You know, Zenaval said privately, when we first discovered humans were achieving FTL travel ahead of schedule, we thought it was the beginning of a crisis. We never imagined it would be the beginning of a renaissance. Sarah smiled. That's the thing about humans. We don't just overcome obstacles, we transform them into opportunities. And now the entire galaxy is learning to do the same. In the space lanes around the assembly world, ships of all designs and origins moved freely, each one a testament to the new era of galactic civilization. The humans had indeed changed everything, not through force or fear, but through their fundamental nature, their curiosity, their adaptability, and their relentless drive to explore not just the stars, but the very boundaries of what was possible. The galaxy would never be the same, and that, as humanity had shown, was exactly what it needed.